Hey guys, it's Toniko Pantoja, and today this is more of a casual video entry because of the recent news of Blue Sky shutting down, a decision that was made by the company that bought them, which was Disney. So there's a lot of things I do want to talk about, but I'm just going to try and summarize my thoughts here. So first of all, I'm going to talk a bit about myself when I was just graduating from school. So the mindset I had when I was graduating was that I would come into a good studio, anticipating to work with some of the giants in the industry, and maybe over time building up my career to eventually becoming a supervisor or a director. Right after graduation, I was accepted as a trainee for DreamWorks' story program. And from then on, I was thinking I start from here and work my way up until maybe I hit a supervisor role, a director role. It's the thing that made the most straightforward sense. Just climb your way up through the studio's ladder. Now, a few months after the start of that trainee program, and maybe just a couple of months after we graduated from that trainee program, so we were full-time story artists now, DreamWorks feature animation was not in a good state. Near the end of 2014 and the start of 2015, DreamWorks had lost about 500 employees as well as canceling productions altogether, productions that I was involved with. At this point, I've already moved into the television department of DreamWorks, but I didn't stay too long because they weren't able to secure my work visa. When I came back to the United States at the start of 2016, I came back to DreamWorks. However, during that time, NBC and Comcast bought off DreamWorks, and that also meant that a few projects from DreamWorks were already being axed. Now, because one of the projects that I was involved in was being shelved at the time, and because I didn't have my contract recently renewed, it was easy for them to let me go. So people I personally know and my coworkers know that I've been in several different projects that have gotten cancelled, and that's work that I've done that will probably never see the light of day. Those are works that I can't share publicly, and things I can't really just add to my resume, and I'm pretty sure there's another half of my IMDb page that has a few cancelled projects here and there. I sometimes wonder if things went smooth sailing, I would have been in a different stage in my career right now. The fact is, these were circumstances that I couldn't control. These were totally outside of my power. Determining all your overall happiness and success to a single studio, I personally don't think is ideal anymore. I think that's kind of why I get burned out when I hear people say things like, I want to work for this studio, and I really want to just work for this studio only. And I wonder if that attitude stays if, let's say, you get a job at that studio, they let you go, they put you in a crappy situation, would you feel the same way too? I think it's because a lot of these things have happened to me, where there were circumstances that I had no power over, I had no control over. It's been so much easier for me to accept and move on, and just to work on things that are under my control. I personally think there's a small flaw to the education system that applies to both college universities and also the workshop classes, where teachers teach the skills needed to get a job for studio work. The flaw here is not the fact that they are teaching the skills needed to get the job and how to get that job. Those skills are necessary, and you want to prepare students so they can actually find work in the industry. But I also think there should also be a discussion of alternate paths and exploring other ventures, like maybe going the indie route, maybe teach more about leadership skills, or skills where you can actually run a business. I also wish more sources of education also talked about how to prepare their students for these type of circumstances where studios let go of hundreds of employees and how one would deal with that. Sometimes a teacher would also share horror stories within the industry. I'm not sure if this is just meant to warn their students or to maybe scare them about the things that can happen in the industry, but I think there should be more teachers promoting the more indie route, or encouraging their students to maybe form their own sort of industry, or their own line of career, without seeing studio work as the only viable option. So because I've been involved in crappy circumstances like a studio letting me go because something happened with the studio and nothing with me, I've also learned to invest in other things outside the studio work. That's why you'll always constantly hear me talk about investing in personal projects or side projects outside of your normal studio work. Whether it's original stories, whether you're teaching a course yourself, whether you want to go into merchandising, or maybe produce your own animated projects. There's a lot of benefits you can gain out of this. One being you stand out more with those things, and it's much easier for people to recognize you in a whole body of all these other talented artists. And if those side projects actually bring you income, that's income security. I think it's because I've experienced being let go a lot, and that I've also invested time in my personal projects. It's much more easier for someone like me to be okay with being let go because I'm stable enough on my own, I have enough savings to last for a long time, and I'll look into actually starting things on my own. I was having a late night conversation with some of my friends regarding Blue Sky and its closure, and I was telling them every time I hear news of a studio closing down, it just makes me feel a bit more driven to go more into the indie route, to see what other opportunities are out there. or the route just outside of the mainstream, maybe involved with a new movement of animation or other forms of storytelling that isn't mainstream, maybe allow us to invest more in methodologies that make it more accessible for people who aren't backed up with studio money to produce actual stuff. The demand for more animation has definitely gotten higher, but that can't belong to a single industry or one major studio. The internet has gotten much better where we can actually work from the safety of our homes, we can converse through online, and we can still send files and still produce work. And you know what? I think more prolific people in the industry are starting to look more into other scenes outside of the mainstream industry, outside of the control and circumstances by a studio. Because whenever it comes to productions, especially in studios, there's just a lot of politics and hurdles that one must go through just to get something simple done. Now, this isn't me against the studio or the studio work, because I still think there's value to being in a studio, such as the learning experiences, as well as meeting inspiring coworkers, the overall experience, and getting income for that. But this is more of a reflection of why I no longer depend on my overall success and happiness based on where I'm at in a studio. Now, the idea of a studio shutting down and having to let go all of its employees, I find that totally unacceptable. However, these things have happened for a long time now. You can either complain about it, talk about how that studio betrayed you somehow, or you can move forward and start being productive. One of the crappiest experiences I had was when one of our producers brought in their friend who happened to be another producer for another studio, basically just revealed that our movie was getting canceled, yet the studios and the internal producers did not tell us anything about that. And to find that out from another person who was from another studio, I did feel a bit betrayed from that. But I guess that's also happened for a long time too. Some people of higher standing outside have a bigger scoop of what's actually going on, more than the actual artists and talent in a project. For the past 10 years, the world has been changing. The internet has become better, there's a lot more voices being recognized out there, and there's more investment in creator-driven projects. Whether that creators outside the industry, whether they're inside, or whether they're at the other side of the world, those voices are starting to be heard more and more, especially with the power of social media. There's a lot of popular artists out there who can make income through just Patreon or crowdfunding, or through YouTube alone. Nowadays, there's more power to creative-driven people. Now, before I wrap this up, I just want to thank the Studio Blue Sky for its commitment, for its contribution to the industry and the community, as well as the people who were involved in that journey. I hope this transition will be smooth sailing for those who were affected by this closure, and I wish you guys all the best, and eventually, and I do believe this, that we're all going to work together at some point. I don't think this should be a sign of defeat, it's just the start of a new chapter. Anyways, that's all I just really wanted to talk about. There's really not a big talk that I just wanted to have. It's just some thoughts I wanted to share. Okay, bye. Interested in learning hand-drawn animation or learning how to finish an animated shot from beginning to end? Have a look at the store where you'll find the complete Introduction to 2D Animation video course, tutorials, and other resources. Learn classical animation approaches, drawing, lectures, techniques, and other process videos. Visit the store through the link in the description below.